So, we're going to talk about a pathway to a positive change today. If you're like anybody else, we all have anger blind spots. But how do we know? If we're repeating the same patterns with the same poor results, that's going to be an indication. So, like, for example, when you're repeatedly feeling riled up over a social situation and you act as if that situation exclusively caused the feeling, that's a blind spot because it's not that specific situation if it's continuously happening. Paul Dubois, the founder of rational therapy, he asserted that emotional thinking is a blind spot for a lot of people. He said, let us note the fact that if the conduct of others has been the cause of our emotions, it's really we ourselves who have created it by the way that we have reacted. So it's not the other person, it's within ourselves. And the more that you know about your anger thoughts, the quicker you can spot them and get rid of them yourself. We're going to explore 4 different ways to free yourself from the harmful feelings that come up with the anger thinking so that you can more happily and more realistically get on with your life. And this is going to include discarding any false beliefs to kind of start on that path of the emotional freedom. We're going to learn how to use Albert Ellis's famous ABCDE technique to kind of hone in on your reasoning. And to set yourself free from that inner tyranny of the parasitic anger thinking and really promote your mental flexibility and your tolerance for reality by substituting probability thinking rules for, like, if we're thinking in black and white, absolute perfectionist thinking, then we need to substitute that for probability rules. And I'll get into this in a moment. When we have fewer anger patterns to contend with, the chances are that you're going to experience harmony between what you think and what you feel and what you do. So you're part of a belief-making species. We all develop beliefs. Your core beliefs represent your convictions for what is true and what is false, what is right, what is wrong. And your beliefs are fused with the meaning that you give to your life, the meaning that you give to things, and the meaning that you give to why people do what they do. Your beliefs influence whether you're going to tend to view situations on a scale, as a probability, or in black and white terms. And some are going to be fact-based beliefs, and some are going to contain partial truths, and some are going to be fuzzy or false, depending on where that belief came from in the first place. And of course, you're going to evaluate and judge and organize your actions through combinations of cognitive processes like logic and reason and intuition and insights, heuristics, which are like rules of thumb, different associations from experiences. Some people say common sense. I say common sense isn't common, but we'll go on. The list goes on and on to where these beliefs come from, but it doesn't matter. Your beliefs often color these processes as well as your perspectives and your perceptions. How we're viewing it is colored by that belief. Your beliefs are going to range in strength from like a very firm conviction that's very impervious to any facts that could like disconfirm it, and on the other end to some loosely held views from something that you heard, right? You're naturally going to ground some of your beliefs and experiences. So, like, for example, you believe your best friends have high integrity because they routinely keep commitments and act responsibly. Something that's grounded in your experience. I'm not going to touch the stove when it's on because I know it's hot because I've touched it before. Every time I touch it, it's hot. So that's a deeply rooted and grounded belief. And it can be a very firm conviction. Don't touch the stove is hot. There's a math problem going around, and everybody is up in arms around this math problem. And it's written out 100 divided by, and then it's got 4 and then a parentheses sign and 2 plus 3 in parentheses. And some people are getting the answer of 5 and some people are getting the answer of 125, and they're saying, oh, well, you can't do the order of operations because it's left to right, and other people are like, order of operations says multiplication before division. And so they're getting different answers, and these people are losing their minds because this is how I've always done it. I'm very grounded and rooted in this particular way to do math. And they're firmly convicted on this is how this is done. And that's going to color how they're viewing the other person, the interaction, things of that nature. So you might believe that maybe your future is going to be positive and you're going to find a way to meet your challenges. The challenges that you anticipate and those that are still, unknown. Even if it's a misguided belief, the odds are that you're going to lead a healthier, happier life than a person with a pessimistic belief that one bad thing after another is just looming in the future. That can really rob you of any joy in your life. Some beliefs are just implausible. A pessimist. Hmm. Yeah. A pessimist, yes. So if you're constantly pessimistic in your thinking, then you would be termed a pessimist. But I don't like labels in here. So your thinking is pessimistic, you are not. Does that make sense? Like labels, yeah, we want to label the conversation, not the person. Yeah, correct. So like they All right. So there are mental health diagnoses. Um, so let's say depression, for example. Um, I am not depressed. I have depression. I am not a diabetic. I have diabetes. I am not an addict. I have an addiction. It's the way that when we label something like that, and this is a hill I'll die on, and I'm actually going to talk about that in here, but um, when when we start to label ourselves, we put that label on us. Oh, I'm an addict. Oh, I'm the black sheep of the family. Oh, I'm a felon. Oh, I'm this, I'm that. We're subconsciously giving ourselves permission to do the things that that label subscribes to. So if I say I'm the black sheep of the family, then that subconsciously gives me permission to continue to be all the things that constitute a black sheep of a family. So I'm going to continue to mess up. Oh, it's okay because that's what the black sheep of the family does, right? Continues to mess up. Or if I'm saying that, oh, I am an addict. Well, what do addicts do? They use, right? And so if I'm continuously telling myself that, oh, I'm an addict, I'm an addict, I'm an addict, subconsciously it gives you permission to keep going. So if we start to change the labeling and label the behavior and not the person, it gives a whole new meaning to it. I have an addiction. I am not an addict. Okay, we're not our behaviors. Um, so some of our beliefs can be implausible. So you think others should like play by your rules as if they don't have rules of their own. And you anger yourself when they don't play by your rules. And if you act as if you believe that another person's worth depends on what you think of them, that's a fallacy. So here's a test for the strength of your conviction. What are you willing to bet that no one can contest that belief convincingly, including you? How much would you bet that not a single person on earth could contest your belief? That's the test to see, is this implausible? The New York Post journalist repeatedly asked the famous philosopher Bertrand Russell if he was willing to die for his beliefs. He said, of course not. After all, I may be wrong. So that's why I said I'll talk about it in a moment. But absolutely, I honestly do not believe, and this is my belief, that I am wrong about the whole label situation. But maybe somebody can prove me wrong here. But that's my belief. And some of these beliefs that we have are so deeply rooted. And it can be very difficult to break out of those deeply rooted beliefs, especially if they're doing damage to you, like racism. That would be a very deeply rooted belief that some people have that is doing damage to both themselves and the other person. And it can be a very difficult thing to uproot that belief and throw it away and get a new belief altogether. But beliefs are not equal. Believing in the tooth fairy as a child is different from believing as an adult that people who disagree with you deserve this wrathful vengeance. And beliefs come in different, distinct forms. One form is metacognitive beliefs. And this is kind of a tricky thing. These are beliefs about your thoughts. Like, negative thoughts are uncontrollable. Like, I just can't control the negative thoughts. They just come in my head and I can't control it. Metacognitive beliefs are about not being able to control negative thoughts. It tends to reinforce the very same negative thoughts that you want to stop. And that's unfortunate because the beliefs that you can't or the belief that I can't control my thoughts tends to activate anxiety. And that's going to send you down this rabbit hole of what if this happens, and what if that happens, and what if this happens, and what if that happens. And now you're having a physical reaction to a thought that you're having, and you are losing control. And so now your heart is racing, your breathing is labored, and you're shaking, you're sweating, you're starting to feel like you're having a heart attack. And that's how that happens. So you have the trigger, and then the metacognitive belief, and then you ruminate on it. And then you have like the negative metacognitive belief, like I can't control my ruminations, and that's going to lead to like the depression or the anxiety. And I've said it 100 times, but what you think influences how you feel, and how you feel influences how you're going to behave. And so if we're having these negative metacognitive beliefs, I can't control my thoughts, then it's going to lead to the depression or the anxiety. But the issue isn't whether you can stop the flow of the thought. Your stream of consciousness is ongoing. You can think about your thinking, and to one degree or another, you can kind of redirect your flow in a rational or a positive way, and really just like debunk the harmful fictions and fallacies that you're coming up with. Cognitive reappraisal is an example of this. So in the ABCDE process that we're going to learn how to use is just more research supported approaches to really just doing the same thing. Just checking out how rational and realistic is my belief about this situation. And some beliefs are fact-based and rational, like water's necessary for life. Regular dental care reduces your risk of heart attack. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And because you can prove them, they're fact-based beliefs or truths. Who's going to bet against that? Not many. But some beliefs are irrational or inconsistent with observation or inconsistent with fact or inconsistent with reality. So an irrational belief is that for you to be a happy person, you have to be free of all tension forever. Or another is that people who violate your beliefs or your rules or your role expectations, they're just rotten to the core and they deserve the worst. And these beliefs are as valid as believing that bald eagles and rabbits are natural friends. When you experience them as incontestable truths, you'll feel and act for your beliefs in situations that activate them. So the question here is, are your core beliefs powerful? So in the Pacific Ocean theater near the end of the World War II, the Japanese authorities sent young pilots to fly into vessels in the U.S. fleet. Our primal instinct is to survive and thrive. And this suicide run went against that mandate. But close to 4,000 pilots flew to their deaths on kamikaze bombing runs. So what makes this a complex issue? The pilots learned that they would fly on a divine wind to heaven for their heroic deeds of saving the Japanese nation. And as these winds have saved the nations for centuries before, it would save them. And that narrative fits with history and the strong tradition to not surrender, but to die honorably. So when the commanders asked for the volunteers, they did so in a group setting, where backing off would be an act of dishonor and shame, which was also very deeply rooted in the Japanese culture, the history, the tradition, and the power of the group conformity really overwhelmed that survival instinct. So we're going to go over the ABCDE model now. The A stands for the activating event. Something happens. Someone cuts you off in traffic. I'm going to skip over the B for right now. The C is the consequence, which is comprised of the feelings and the behaviors that happen after the event happens. So if somebody cuts me off in traffic, I may honk my horn, I may yell out the window, I may curse in my car, I may honk the horn, whatever. So that's the behavior that I do. I may feel enraged. I may feel very angry that someone cut me off. So that's the feeling that I'm having. That's the consequence. So the consequence is I feel enraged and I honk my horn and yell out the window. The activating event was the person cut me off in traffic. Now let's go back for a second to the B. The B is the belief. What did I believe to be true in this situation? So what do you think the belief was that led to me honking my horn and feeling angry that the person cut me off? That what? Correct. Yeah, so we have this idea that I'm in this lane, this is my lane, I have every right to be here, you should not cut me off. Now, that's the A, B, and C. The A, the activating event, the B is the belief, and the C is the consequence or the feelings and behaviors that happen because of my belief. Now, the D stands for dispute. We're not disputing what I should have done or should have said, or what they should have done or what they should have said, or what we could do differently in the future. We're not disputing the consequence. We're not disputing our feelings or behaviors. What we're disputing here is the belief. You should not cut me off in traffic. Well, who am I to tell other people what they should and should not do, or what they should and should not say? That's not my place. Think about it. If somebody tells you how to speak, or what to say or what not to say, how are you going to feel? You're going to be like, you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. So we can't dispute how we should have behaved or how they should have behaved. We have to dispute the belief that you should not speak to me that way. You should not behave that way toward me. This shouldn't be happening, right? And usually when I hear should or must in my thinking pattern, if I can insert the word should in that sentence, it's probably not a rational thought. So I want to dispute that belief. And usually I can dispute that belief by saying, I can't control what other people say or do. And the effect is going to be that my anger is going to come down. I'm not going to feel so enraged. And I may even do the situational view of, or the situational perspective of maybe that person has to go to the bathroom really bad. Or maybe they're late for work and I was the one that was impeding their way. And maybe it was my fault, that I was doing something incorrect. So I have to kind of dispute, you should not cut me off. This is my lane, right? And the effect is that I'm going to feel calmer. I may feel angry, but not enraged, so to speak. So your homework for this week is you are going to do the ABCDE model. You're going to find an event that happened either this week or in the past, and you're going to write down what the event was. How did you respond to that emotionally and behaviorally? And I want you to then go back and do the B, the belief about the event. What belief did you have about the activating event that led to the emotional and behavioral consequences that happened? Then I want you to ask 4 basic questions of yourself. If 12 people observed the event, would they all come to the same conclusion? What part of my thinking is likely to be rational and verifiable? What part of my thinking is likely to be parasitic and disconfirmable? And does my anger belief help me to achieve reasonable and constructive goals? And then I want you to write down the effect that has on how you're feeling and thinking going forward.